Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cappuccino with HR. My name is Rudi Bauer, and after 40 years in business, I'm 100% sure that the success of companies is directly related to the passion of the people working for these companies. With the Cappuccino of HR, we created a format where we really invite people. It's HR leaders, it's recruiters, it's talent acquisition guys, and we're talking about all the different kind of topics. And the range is going from AI, of course, to new work, to leadership, and all the challenges along the way. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Cappuccino with HR. And today I'm really delighted to have Vanessa with us, Vanessa Raath. She's located in South Africa, if I'm right now as well. So thank you for taking your time and for joining. And we're talking about different kind of topics because Vanessa is really in the business for quite some time. She's the international keynote speaker. She's totally in sourcing. And I think we grabbed the topic today and we're talking, of course, about AI a little bit. I think we're talking about sourcing, the future of HR probably. And I think what anyhow is going on. So I'm really interested, and diversity, of course, is an important topic as well. So I'm really interested in stepping into the conversation with you. Welcome, Vanessa. Thanks for your time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
And as it's called Cappuccino with HR, the first question is, I think, is what's your favorite coffee?
I'm going to throw a real cat amongst the pigeons here. And I'm going to say I only actually have one coffee a day, and that's in the morning. And I always have a cappuccino sachet when I wake up. And that is my favorite. So I'm not really a coffee snob. I'm actually more of a tea drinker. But I do like to have one coffee when I wake up, or if I'm, out and about, I'll get a coffee at one of the shops, but just a cappuccino, actually. I'm not fussy.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And the second thing what I would ask you is to probably introduce yourself for the audience in one or two or three sentences.
Awesome. So thank you very much. It was a great introduction. So my name is Vanessa Raath. I'm based in the beautiful Garden Route of South Africa, and I'm a global talent sourcing trainer, which pretty much means that I train teams all over the world on how to source talent more effectively, more efficiently. And of late, I've actually been having a bit of an identity crisis because I'm also a AI in recruitment consultant. So thank goodness I love what I do and enjoy being a solopreneur.
As AI is all around, I think I have to start with this question. So as AI is all around, what does AI mean for sourcing? Is it a big help? Is it replacing sources? Is there tools you can recommend? So it's a really open question because I think it's just such a broad topic. What's your take on AI in sourcing?
So AI and sourcing, you're right, it's a very big topic. And I do believe that it is going to take a lot of what a sourcer does, but I hope it takes away all that dreadful admin that bogs us down. Because most of us went into recruitment or talent sourcing because we love dealing with people. So if I have a tool like AI that can make me more effective, more efficient, can do some of the tasks for me, especially the repetitive tasks that I don't enjoy doing, that is great. So there are some fantastic tools out there. I actually can share a link with you. I've got an amazing set of tools because I've decided to position myself this year as the conduit between AI software vendors and my clients who are all approaching me and saying, Vanessa, we trust you. What is going on with all of this AI? There's a tsunami on its way and we don't know where to start. And then with me chatting with all the AI software vendors, I have a good insight into what are the good tools, and I've put it all together on a sheet. It's a start.me page, and I'm sure we can put a link to it down below, and then anyone is welcome to go and have a look at it.
We definitely will do that. And I mean, if you look on sourcing in previous times, if you're looking on recruiting probably in previous times and overall, we always had this problem of being not diverse enough, being biased in a way. Is there kind of solution coming up with AI or with the help of AI to avoid this?
So there's two parties on this. There's two chains of thought. And one is that AI is going to be even more biased because the people who have trained the LLMs or large language modules have got their inherent biases, which they took and they built, putting together these LLMs. So that's the one school of thought. The second school of thought is that it's actually going to be better because you're going to be dealing with AI, which doesn't come with any inherent biases like we do as human beings. So the diversity is actually going to be a lot easier because the tools are going to be doing the initial screening, and they shouldn't be, bringing any bias to the table because they have no point of reference from their childhood or people that they work with or anything like that.
Mhm. And how do you think, how could people in HR find the balance between the intuition? Because HR for me always has a big intuition part as well. I mean, that is probably the reason why we all went into HR. We wanted to work with people, we wanted to talk to people, wanted to build up relations with people. So you have this intuitive part where you feel something if you meet someone the first time. And automation of the processes. Where's from your point of view the right balance, or how to walk into it? Because
So that's an interesting question. And one of the things that I need to bring up here is the EU AI Act, which has now come into play, and it's kind of been implemented. And one of the key things it says is that there has to be human oversight in all of your AI usage across all of your recruitment processes. So for me, that gut feel that you talk about, you meet someone, you get a good feeling about them, that's still going to be there because there's still going to be human oversight. So I think that we need to realize is that where AI comes into play with these things is that it helps to kind of sift through the noise, and it will help us to find the right candidates who will then still go on to meet someone in the process of recruitment. But what it's going to do is we seem to be having a global skills crisis at the moment. So where before you'd put an advert out and you'd maybe have 20 people applying for it, you can now have as many as 200. It's getting those CVs, down to a more manageable number so that the person can then have interaction with the right candidates who are ticking the right boxes.
Mm-hmm. And but if companies start thinking about using it, what is the best first step to start with? Because I think the first step is always the most problematic, and I think normally companies are afraid to do the first step. And I mean, as you are in business for such a long time, how is it the best way to start with, or what is the best way to start with?
So what I always recommend, and I run AI workshops and I consult with companies around this, is that let's identify where your problems are. So where can we best use AI? Not to think about it that AI is going to do everything. You can go and you can, get rid of your whole TA team or all of your recruiters. Let's see, what are they doing? What are they doing that's very admin focused? What's taking up most of their time? What are they doing that's repetitive? And then let's see if we can find a corresponding AI tool that we can use in order to speed up those processes. And that for me is the important piece. Is it's, problem first, what do we need to fix? And then let's go and find the best solution, not just try and solve absolutely everything at the same time, because that's not going to work.
Do you think that companies out there are good in problem recognition?
Not always. It often comes down to their EQ and how well they know their processes. Unfortunately, a lot of the change and people wanting AI in the organization comes from the CEO. Now, the CEO doesn't actually have a view down all the way to the TA team and down to each minute recruitment process. But he knows if he gets AI on board, he's going to be, hopefully quicker than his competitors. He's going to be more effective, and he's going to be able to save the company more money and therefore make them more profitable. Now, the problem with that is that they don't always know what to change first. So, some companies are better than others. Some we need to look at how they are currently doing things, and where are things taking too long. So recruitment's become a real race these days, and what is preventing them from getting a CV in front of their hiring manager or their client the quickest.
I mean, as I personally experience HR, or not HR, but probably the recruiting topic in organizations since many years, as kind of reactive, so not proactive enough. I think we are always in HR, we are most of the time in a reactive mode. So we need some kind of resources. We are late already. Competition is tough. We're not paying enough. So I think we are not in the best start at the best starting point. So we are reactive. Wouldn't that mean that we need to come to really make it a kind of a structured process, to really make it a kind of a make use of all the tools that are out there to get into the proactive phase first, with a kind of a strategy, with a kind of a people strategy? Let's call it people strategy.
True, but I don't think that we need AI tools for that. Like we were talking about off air, how, a lot of companies in the recruitment space are telling me how many people they have on their database. And I'm like, well, that's great that you've got 500,000 people on your database, but they could all be dead because you never keep in touch with them. A strategy that's a better strategy is actually building a community. So figuring out, your niche in recruitment, how do you build a community of those individuals and be more personable and be more human with them is a much better way than actually relying on a database and being reactive. So that means, the job order comes in and then you go to your database or you start searching for someone. Where if you had an active community and the role came in, you've already got an active place where people like to go, they like to spend their time, where you can post the advert. And you probably know 2 or 3 people that you've spoken with because you've done almost upfront recruiting and you've dealt with passive individuals, and you know who's looking and who's ready to make a change. And that's actually very simple to do from a human perspective. You don't even need AI for that.
Yeah, that's right. That's really right. But isn't there a kind of a isn't there kind of a fear of the companies out there that going into community means speaking their language, understanding their language, being on eye level, talking about topics that they are really interested in. And honestly, either CEOs nor HR is probably able to talk. In our case, it's software developers. We're developers taking care about software developers, but they are really afraid in stepping into it. And what's your tips there? How to approach a community to use them for your sourcing needs?
That's a very good question. So I would say you got to start your own community, because someone who's already got a community is probably using them somewhere, somehow, for doing some kind of recruitment or talent acquisition already. But I think it's about providing the platform and it's facilitating those peer-to-peer connections. So it doesn't have to be someone in your team who's adding value to them. You could be inviting guest speakers. You could be hosting discussion panels and just asking the right questions. And it's all about, and it always reminds me of that movie from the 80s, like Field of Dreams. And it's like, if you build it, they will come. So if you give them the platform to have their community and you provide everything which they would need, you don't need to be a subject matter expert in their space. You've got to understand it. You've got to be able to speak at high level. But a recruiter who's niching in that space should be able to do that already. But then you should really be encouraging people to go there and spend more time there, because that for me would be my new database. So for me, you can throw away your database, but get those people into a community, because that's going to have far more impact in the long run.
So that if I understand you right, you mean give them the safe space where they can live their lives, give them this kind of ambience, give them this kind of environment where they feel at home, and the rest is done by themselves if you do it clever enough. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. Appoint people who could be deputies, who could maybe run different channels, different chapters of the group. See if you can get some company sponsorship in. You could maybe pay people, but that's what it's all about. It's that safe space, because not everyone thinks that social media is, that friendly, and people are dotted all over the place. Some people prefer Facebook, some people Instagrams. Software developers, let's face it, don't enjoy LinkedIn. But you've got your GitHub, you've got just Kaggle, you've got Dev, you've got all of these different places. So it's about maybe trying to get as many people into one platform. Maybe it's in your area or something that you have good connections and communication channels with them.
Honestly, that's that's exactly how we're developers. The basic idea behind WeAreDevelopers is exactly that. Yeah, giving them a safe space, hosting stages for them, bringing them on stage, giving them the possibility to talk about their favorite topics, and bringing people together in a network, in a community. I think that's basically the idea. how WeAreDevelopers and
Absolutely.
why WeAreDevelopers was founded a couple of years
And
ago.
also there you've got their trust. They trust you. They're gonna definitely chat with you before they want to be making a career move. I think it's brilliant. I think what you have done is honestly the future of recruitment.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we call ourselves WeAreDevelopers, and that is also showing us on a daily basis for whom we are working primarily. So it's really we if it doesn't make sense for developers, we don't do it. I mean, that's a kind of and our developer relations guys, they have got a weight on a lot of decisions. Yeah, even if it would bring a lot of money, if to say this doesn't make sense for the community, we are normally not doing it because then it doesn't make sense. Yeah. If as many companies are now trying, or some of them are already very successful with doing it, what do you think about building up a kind of a developer relations department or organization or function within an organization as a kind of a interface between the worlds?
I think it's a great idea, and I think that it will go a long way because there's often a lot of animosity between developers and companies, and there's not a great history of between the developers and the recruiters. I mean, it's like the postman and the dog that you see in the US. The dog's always going to chase the postman, and I think that recruiters and developers have had such a torrid time in the past. There's so much water that's gone under the bridge, and I think that does go a long way. That would be more for individual companies, I would think, to help with an employer branding perspective, is that, make sure that good content gets out there. They've got a lot of social proof. They've got a lot of good videos. Those things are important. And, if that falls under developer relations, then that's brilliant. It could be someone who even sits in a TA team who does that, who understands social media and putting the company in a positive light. But I think it's a great idea, and we need to see more of it.
Mm. If I come back to diversity, I mean, what we see, we do a big survey every year, and we see what we saw over the last couple of years in the outcomes and the results of these surveys was that in 2019 it was mainly the brand which was important for hiring developers, and it was salary. Yeah, and now that really changed, and it's totally moving into a direction of diversity, sustainability, well-being,
That's good to know.
and inclusion. So I think that's really on the top of the agenda of the people out there if they asked, okay, for whom do you want to work? So this is really focused topic, and I really love that because it brings a kind of a new fairness on the market as well, because in 2019 it was the big brands. Everybody wanted to work for the Googles and Zalandos and all the big ones out in the market.
Yes.
So the big brand names with kind of a lot of money in their pockets, because otherwise they probably wouldn't have managed to have this brand. With sustainability, diversity, inclusion, well-being, I think a lot of smaller companies have got better cards now. I think they probably have a big advantage because they can implement these kind of cultural elements much faster than big ones. And what's your take on this? That's the first question. The second question is, if you want to get into kind of diversity and sourcing diverse talents, I mean, everybody's putting it on this agenda. It's everywhere. Everybody has got this in his probably vision and mission statements in the meantime, and on cultural boards. But how could you measure it? What is a key metrics that you probably need to implement as well to show that it's really proved? And sorry for this long question now.
Okay, that is a long question. So let me see if I can answer it. So I'm very glad to hear that, because anyone who's got access to latest news or media these days know that there's a massive drive of the US at the moment to actually get rid of DE&I, and it's now been taken out of policies in a lot of massive organizations in the US. So I think what that is causing is it's causing the rest of the world to actually sit up and say, you know what, DE&I had actually quietened down. But now that the US is banning it, it's made a lot of people in the rest of the world sit up and say, actually, we're going to work harder at getting our DE&I right, because we've got a whole nation, a whole continent sitting, on the other side of the world that isn't going to focus on this. So I'm really glad to see that it's kind of raised its kind of head again, because it did go quiet for a long time. I think AI, made sure that DE&I stayed in the background. But for me, it's about being an inclusive organization first. So it's about looking at your current staff. Nobody wants to be first. So if you're looking to get, hire people who come from, say, minority environments, you got to make sure that there are people with, who are coming from minority environments, or hire a group of people to begin with, or go out there, find communities and sponsor communities. So, for example, if you're now sitting in Europe, maybe there's a community for people that have got come from other nations, come from North Africa or something. Okay, that's a whole community of people. Let's bring them into the organization. Let's sponsor them from the outside. Let's see how we can uplift them. And then when we get to the end of the program, we can bring the best people on board. So I definitely think that it's something that we should all be doing, and we should all be doing it for the right reasons. Your last question there was, how would we measure this? And I think you measure DE&I by understanding your company culture and seeing how eager people are to come and work for you, and having a look at your workforce. Where a lot of people rely on, stock standard images when they talk about their company to put on their website and their socials, that doesn't work. Get some real photographs of people that work for your organization and put them out there and share. It's not something you should consciously be doing, but that will show people how diverse you really are.
Mm. What do you think about real talks? I mean, there's a kind of, some companies are trying it out. There's all this big discussion with the board, of course, because it means people can really say what they think. Did you think it helps?
I think in the right environment, and if you have the right controls in place. There's also a lot of things that I think that businesses think they can solve, but they actually can't. It comes down to a government. It comes down to government policies, government laws, those kind of things. And I think there needs to be a clear distinction between what can we do as a business and what we actually need to change at a country governing law kind of perspective, and tackle the ones that you can fix as a business. And if you are going to go into these real talks kind of situations, have a very clear objective of what are you trying to achieve, because you can go off topic and you can go down rabbit holes. And to be honest, it can get nasty quite quickly.
Totally different direction now, because when I came into HR, I think it was in 2014, 13, 14, somewhere around this time. So it was my first real job within HR when I joined StepStone as a managing director. When I went to the first conferences, I was really fascinated by the big number of buzzwords that were out in this special area. So at every conference, there was a new buzzword and everybody was afraid of it. What's the next one? Or what's your current buzzword that you love most, probably?
Sure. I wouldn't say I love it the most, but the current one that I'm hearing all the time has to be generative AI. I mean, it's been around for a long time. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's using it in different ways. Everyone thinks what they're doing is right. Some people are too scared to use it because they think it's going to take their jobs. And then future buzzword that I can already see coming down the line is agentic AI, because now everyone's talking about, we have to build our own agents, and we need to do this. And then there's going to be a lot of confusion about where do we get started? Is it low code? Is it no code? So yeah, those are the definite buzzwords that I'm probably going to be hearing a lot in the next 3 weeks as I've traveled to the US and the UK to speak at conferences. I'm going to put money on the fact I'm going to hear a lot about those.
And if you could do a kind of a quick speech to the nation, yeah, what would you love to talk about, and what would the topic be?
So, which nation are we talking about? Let's get that right.
HR. Let's call it the HR nation.
The HR nation. Yeah. I think that what we need to talk about is HR, and let's just actually be honest and talk about the name, human resources. So there's a lot of people in HR at the moment who are very, very scared that AI is going to take, some of their jobs. And I'm not saying that it won't. Yeah. I'm saying that we need to keep up to date, with AI, and we don't want to lose our next opportunity to someone who is using AI where we won't go anywhere near it. So you've got to stay up to date. You've got to stay tech savvy. But on that note, my state to the nation of HR people is just to stay up to date. Like, instead of worrying about it, instead of having sleepless nights now, just try and keep a finger on the pulse, see where you can start using it. And don't forget that it's human first. And that's really, really important. And I think that that's what people are losing sight of. It's lead with humanness, be kind to each other, and make sure that when the push comes to shove is that you are better equipped than everybody else in your team who maybe is not as au fait with AI, because I do think that's what it's going to come down to.
Mm-hmm. I really was smiling when you said HR. I mean, because what I did at a conference many years ago, and my last chart was on at this talk was if we would if we would do should or we could do ourselves a favor, we should get rid of the R in HR, because as long as we are treating humans as resources, I think we will definitely always be on the wrong track. What do you think about this? Because I said, okay,
Yep.
let's get rid of the R in HR. That was my last slide, and I got standing ovations. That was really the funny thing. That is why I remembered it. Because honestly, I think we are always. I mean, to explain it probably with 2 sentences more. I think when I started working many years ago, I think it HR was not even called HR. The German word was Personalbeschaffung, which was a really purchasing department. Yeah. So it was purchasing a resource. It was buying a resource on the market for probably the less price or the minimum price, and as quick as possible. And this behavior, I think, is still there in some companies, and I think that companies are still treating their humans and the employees as resources. And from my point of view, if you take people or humans as resources, you always have a price tag on it. It's mainly seen as costs. It's a cost factor within the organization and not the asset. And I think in the meantime, what we need from the people is not labor work in a way of doing something manually, because that probably could be done by robots as well. But it's creativity, it's passion, it's lifetime, what we get from them. Yeah. And I mean, the deal became really unfair, because at the end of the day, you give me your lifetime, you give me your passion, you give me your creativity, and at the end of the money, at the end of the month, I give us some money. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the deal is not even fair at the moment. And what's your take on that? Would that change the world if we would probably started rethinking the whole thing in that direction?
And I think that that's what the potential that AI has got to do, to be honest. I think that we can rethink about things. I mean, the fact that we work 5 days on and have 2 days off is literally stemmed back to like industrial revolution. I mean, it's like it's just been here forever, and it's like we maybe need to think about doing 4 days at work and 3 days not at work. And you know, and certain companies and certain countries are trialing it. For me, there's always something that has to happen. So you perform a service and you get paid. I mean, that's the way the world has worked since biblical times. You either give a product, you give a service, and then you get money, which you can then use your money as a currency to do whatever you want. I don't think that fundamentally is going to change, but I do think that there's been a lot of people who realize, especially during COVID, that they were literally just performing a very menial task, being a person in a seat, and they realized that they wanted more from life. I mean, that's where everyone, started hearing about things like the Great Resignation and those kind of things, is that people realize that there's got to be more to this than working for an almighty warlord and, giving them your blood, sweat and tears and getting your pay at the end of every 2 weeks or every month or however it works. And I think that we're going to really see this, and we're going to really feel this biting us, is this Gen Z that's coming through, because, it's not all about work. It's not all about, climbing the corporate ladder. It's about job satisfaction and actually enjoying what you're doing and making a difference in life. As you've said, the what's important now to a lot of people from your survey is the sustainability and what is the company doing, and, do they want to jump on that bandwagon, or do they want to just make a major bank a lot more money? And I think that everything's going to change. And to be honest, I'm really just looking forward to it. It would be interesting to see how it rolls out.
Yeah, me as well. I think it's challenging times, but I think it's very important times as well, because I think it's probably shaping a new future. Yeah, definitely. As we are really running out of time, so the 30 minutes passed by so quickly, and really looking forward to have further discussions with you in whatever format. But thank you very much for your time. I have one last thing which I want to ask you. Is
Sure.
if you look on probably just sourcing again, yeah, if it
Yes.
on sourcing, and you need to find one adjective which is most needed, what will it be?
One activity, did you say?
One adjective. So
One adjective to
to describe that's
sourcing.
mainly needed for sourcing.
Okay, that's a nice one. I've got a good one. It has to be curiosity. Because to be a good sourcer, you've got to be curious and you've got to keep asking, and then what? And then what? And then what? And what more can I find? And I think that that's really important. So curiosity, if you're a curious person, you know how to use the internet well, you're already halfway there.
I had definitely exactly the same word in mind. So thank you so much for that. Vanessa, it was a pleasure having you with us, and I hope the audience out there is enjoying this episode as much as I did during the recording. Now, thank you so much, and we spoke about it in the off before we recorded the session. Probably we see you in Berlin at our World Congress. Would be amazing. So
that would be great.
We can make it together. Thank you so much, and thanks for being with us. And
thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye. Thank you for watching Cappuccino with HR. If you enjoy this kind of conversations, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Then you get all this kind of upfront information, new upcoming episodes, and all my nice guests. Cappuccino with HR is brought to you by WeAreDevelopers, Europe's #1 developer community and a leading platform for connecting HR and companies together with developers. If you want to learn more, visit us on WeAreDevelopers.com. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time on Cappuccino with HR.